Also, so in the flight training in New Zealand, so like what were the phases of flying out there? Like, so every country had their own phases of flying.
Correct. It's the first phase of every flight training, which is the PPL phase,
Right.
in which you have to fly for about hours. That is hours of dual, hours of PIC, and the last could be anything.
Okay.
In case the student needs more practice.
Right.
Then after that comes hour building towards your instrument rating or your CPL.
Okay.
For that you have to fly for either hours, depending on if you're doing an MEIR or not. So
Right.
if you're not doing MEIR, it's just a standard CPL. Then you only have to build you only have to build hours for about 3 hours.
Okay.
But if you do want an instrument rating, that's when you have to fly for about in this phase.
Okay.
Then once you have the requirements, you can either move to the MEIR phase or to the CPL phase.
Okay.
Depending on the availability of the instructors and the aircraft.
Right.
There's no really harm in doing either or first in that order. But what generally schools do in New Zealand is they do your MEIR first and then the CPL endorsement.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to RSA. My name is Captain Darshil, and today we'll be talking about the flight training in New Zealand. And for that, we have Captain Vedant with us, who has done his flight training as well as instructor rating course from New Zealand. Hi, Captain Vedant.
Hi Darshil, how are you?
Good, good. How are you?
All good, man. Thank you.
So, could you tell us about like how was the visa process for like starting the flight training in New Zealand?
Perfect. Yeah. So unlike all the countries, almost every country, the visa process is really not that different.
Okay.
You have to provide your financial details, your bank statements.
Okay.
The one extra thing that IMZ, which is basically Immigration New Zealand,
Okay.
what they require more is an X-ray of the chest, because India is a risk of TB country.
Correct.
And they want to make sure that everyone they're inducting in their country has not that gene in them.
Right.
Apart from that, it's all the same thing, except for like a US visa where you have to go for an interview. In New Zealand visa, all you have to do is post them the documents as well as your passport.
Right.
And about 30 to 35 days is when you get the passport back with the visa.
All right.
In some cases at the moment, as I've been hearing, you also get the visa online.
Okay.
So that's also an option.
So that's like pretty easy nowadays for the people to apply for it.
100%, yeah.
All right, good to know about that. Also, so like as every country has the different medical requirements, were there any specific things like for in New Zealand also?
Yes, absolutely. So exactly as you said, every country which offers you a flight training has to have a medical as per their standards.
Right.
It's the same for NZCAA, where they do the tests on you, which are basic tests, your blood counts, your hemoglobin and stuff like that.
Right.
You can do those tests in New Zealand, however, it is more expensive there. It is advisable for you to save your money as well as time in India. There are impaneled doctors in India, in Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, and other cities as far as I know. So yeah, you can do your test in India, and they do require a class 1 NZ medical before you can start your flight training.
Oh, and that's actually good also. So like even if you have some problems like doing it from India, you could always resolve the problem and then go back
Absolutely. It won't really make sense if you go there and do your medical and then find out that there's some minor issues with your health.
And then come
because
back
then
again.
It would cost you more to get things fixed there.
Correct.
As
right.
simple as that.
Good to know about that.
Yeah.
Also, so in the flight training in New Zealand, so like what were the phases of flying out there? Like, so every country had their own phases of flying.
Correct. It's the first phase of every flight training, which is the PPL phase.
Right.
In which you have to fly for about 50 hours. That is 20 hours of dual, 20 hours of PIC, and the last 10 could be anything.
Okay.
In case the student needs more practice.
Right.
Then after that comes hour building towards your instrument rating or your CPL.
Okay.
For that you have to fly for either 20 or 50 hours, depending on if you're doing an MEIR or not. So
Right.
if you're not doing MEIR, it's just a standard CPL. Then you only have to build hours for about 20 hours.
Okay.
But if you do want an instrument rating, that's when you have to fly for about 50 in this phase.
Okay.
Then once you have the requirements, you can either move to the MEIR phase or to the CPL phase.
Okay.
Depending on the availability of the instructors and the aircraft.
Right.
There's no really harm in doing either or first in that order. But what generally schools do in New Zealand is they do your MEIR first and then the CPL endorsement.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So also could you tell me, like you have also done it from New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
So like how was like a typical day? Could you like go through the day, like how we could get to know like how you did your training and everything?
100%. So New Zealand as a country is not very big.
Correct.
It's about half the size of Mumbai.
Right, very true.
Okay. But it is divided into 2 islands.
Okay.
One is the North Island and one is the South Island.
All right.
So I did my training in the South Island.
Okay.
Weather there is about 80% good all throughout the year. It's just in the times of winter, it gets bad.
All right.
However, the North Island experience is more adverse weather because the airports are very close to the ocean.
Okay.
So you have fronts and you have different types of weathers coming in every point of
Some
time.
thunderstorms and all.
So the first thing a student should do is have a look out the window.
Right.
Wake up and see if you have good weather.
Weather to fly.
Okay. Then have coffee because coffee becomes your best friend.
Best friend out there.
Late nights, early mornings. Point number one.
Yeah.
Then start your day right, however you want to do it.
Correct.
Check the weather, check everything in terms of like your aspects about operational things in the aircraft. Is the aircraft there? Is it fueled up? Is it not? Have you done your pre-flights and stuff?
Right.
And once you reach, everything looks good. You can speak with the instructor. What I particularly liked about my training in New Zealand is that it's not the instructor's responsibility to talk to you every time. You should have that responsibility in your own head that I have to do everything, and then I have to inform the instructor
That's
that
actually
I have
good.
to go there, and then I have to fly. So
But that's actually good because like
100%.
we are becoming pilots, so like we should know about the right and the wrong. So like
correct.
that makes your decision making as well.
Makes you so much responsible.
Very true.
Because at the end of the day, you will, after flying for about 230 hours, you will have your own CPL.
Correct.
You will fly for an airline, and
Right.
if you don't have that sense of responsibility, it might be a danger to other people.
Very true. That's good to know about that.
Yeah.
So you had some written examinations and check rides like every country has in order to obtain every licenses out there. So
Yes.
how was it in New Zealand for the examinations and
Right.
check rides?
So how they have bifurcated these examinations are, there are majorly, you have three phases. You have the PPL, you have the IR, instrument rating, and then the CPL.
CPL.
So in total, you have about 15 examinations. In New
Okay.
Zealand. 6 are for PPL, which
Okay.
are basically meteorology, regulation, navigation, aircraft technical knowledge, FRTOL and stuff.
Right.
Similar kind of subjects for your CPL phase. So you have 6 for PPL and then 6 for CPL.
Right.
That makes it 12. For an instrument rating, you also have to appear for 3 additional subjects for IR navigation, navigation aids, and IR regulations.
All right.
But yeah, that's all about in terms of examination. And the examination in New Zealand, it's taken by a different entity altogether. It's called ASPEC.
Okay.
ASPEQ. They are the ones who make sure that you have all the examinations, and they have most of the time the examinations are on the weekend.
Okay.
And it's the same as in India, as in US, everywhere. It's MCQ based questions.
Right.
Minimum passing is 70%.
Correct. So like for the check rides, like did you all have to wait for so long, or like was it pretty convenient for you all?
Right. So in New Zealand, the CPL and the multi-check rides are done with ASPEC again.
Okay. Yes.
But your PPL check rides are in-house. So your CFI will be the one who is going to do it. But for your MEIR and as well as your CPL, an impaneled flight check examiner from ASPEC will be sent. In South Island, where I did my CPL, we had about 10 to 12 examiners.
Okay.
So there was no lack of examiners at any point of time.
Right.
If your instructor and if your instructors who have you been flying with feel like you are at that level where you can do a check ride, they'll just have to upload your documents, and maybe in the next week or so, you will have your check ride.
So like you said, for the examinations and the check rides, of course we have some books provided. So like what are the resources provided to you for like these examinations out there?
Right. So every school in New Zealand, they have some sort of material for all exams.
Right.
In my time, when I gave my examinations, we had books for individual subjects.
Oh.
And these books were so well written and so well explained. They basically made my whole foundation about aviation.
Right.
So much so that the moment I came back to India, I left a few clothes back in New Zealand, but these books I took with me.
Right.
Because they're so informative. Even till date, if I have any doubts or something, if I need to clear up something, those are the books I go back to.
Like they are in so detail given to you.
They're so in detail. If you read these books, if you understand the text in these books, it should not be hard for you at all.
Okay.
And that knowledge is something I still carry with myself because it builds such a great foundation.
Oh,
so yeah, all the books will be provided by the school itself.
All right. And like, did you charge you anything for these books, or like were they given to you in your like the quotation and everything?
Right. So the books, the ties and everything which they
Right.
provided, even like the flight computer which they had to give to us, all of that was included in the fee structure.
All right. So like you were pretty well.
Yeah.
Like they already informed you about everything. That's really great.
Yes, correct.
Coming on to the next thing is like, so payment, how was it out there? Like, do you have to do it in one installment, one-time payment, or you had some pay as you go out, as we say now?
Right. I believe if you have that much amount of money, in which you can pay in the first installment.
True.
But no, as it is for every flight school or any aviation school in the world, the installments are there.
Right.
Usually there are about 4 installments.
Okay.
In my school we had 4. The first installment you give when you get the offer letter,
Okay.
because that's the money you have to show to the immigration people that you
Right.
have paid the fees and you have gotten the offer letter.
Correct.
After that, once you begin your PPL school in terms of your examinations, that's when you have to transfer the next money.
Okay.
And I believe the last installment is when you're about to enter into your MEIR phase.
Right.
Because that's when like you'll need that extra money or like
Right.
the money which is
Remaining. All right. That was like really convenient for you to like
Yeah.
do the payments out there.
Yeah.
So as you were flying and you stayed for a while out there, of
Yeah.
course you must be staying somewhere. So like, was the accommodation provided by the school, and like how you used to like manage to travel to the school every day?
Right, correct. So the school that I went to, they had accommodation.
Okay.
They had a bus service from the accommodation to the school 4 times a day.
Okay.
So if you have a late night flight as well, you're not stranded at the airport.
Right.
Okay. A lot of schools don't really have accommodation, but my school in particular had it.
Right.
So it was a 4 BHK house in which we all had our individual rooms and we all had bathrooms.
Right.
So you had your personal time as well.
Okay.
As
yes.
well as when you want to study together and stuff like that, you have people who you can depend on in times of
Right.
emergency or something.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Initially, so you did an instructor rating also. I'm very keen to know about
Yeah.
this. So like, how was it out there? How was your experience? How did you do it? How did you plan to do this out there?
Right. Perfect. So initially when I went to New Zealand, I didn't think that I was worthy enough to be an instructor.
Right.
However, I noticed that difference in the education that I got and the difference in education that I got in New Zealand.
New Zealand, right.
And it really kind of pushed me into being someone who can do that to someone else.
Right.
Because the foundation of really every skill or anything that you do in life, I believe, it starts with a person who is a good teacher.
Right.
If you don't have someone who can explain things to you the way your mind will understand, you will get confused.
Correct.
And the instructors that I was around, my instructors, my CPL instructor, my PPL instructor, not just on a work level, but
Right.
also on a very personal level, they helped me quite a lot.
Okay.
They helped me grow. I believe the person that I am in terms of a pilot, I am a part of each of those.
Right.
So that really pushed me into doing an instructor rating, because it makes me happy when something that I explain to someone and it helps them in their life.
Right.
And that's something I'm also passionate about still.
Right.
So yeah, again, wasn't really a plan, but then in the end found out that it could be my true calling.
Right. And that's how you did your instructor rating out there. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So any tips you would like to give to the future pilots?
100%, man. So the first things first, it is a very disciplined sector. Okay.
Yes.
You have to give your 100% every single day.
Right.
It might not end up in you taking back 100% every single day, but you will keep on learning.
Right.
So don't stop the hard work. Point number 1.
Correct.
Have patience. Okay. And by patience, I mean that it's a skill.
Correct.
It's how you learn how to maybe drive a car, ride a bike and stuff like
Correct,
that. Some
yes.
people can understand it in like a day. Some people might take about 10 to reach to that same level.
Because it's a like skill-based thing.
It's a skill-based thing.
Correct.
Exactly. So if you think that you are lagging behind, if you think that you are not good enough, that's not true.
Correct.
Everyone has a different learning curve.
Right.
Just trust the process.
Correct.
It's going to happen, but it will only happen if you put in the work for it.
Correct.
Those late night hours, those extra time with the books, speaking to people who are your superior,
Right.
as well as your people who are beneath you right now.
Right.
Because every day you can learn something from someone.
Else, yes.
Okay. So yeah, just have patience, work hard for it, and trust the process.
All right. So as you said that you did your instructor rating out there,
Yeah.
and your goal was to become an airline pilot.
Yeah.
So would you recommend like for the pilots to do the instructor rating out there?
So if you're talking to me personally, if you're planning to become an airline pilot in India,
Right.
because the hour requirements to enter into an airline in India are very low.
Right.
It's only 200,
200 hours,
okay, and a
correct,
CPL.
yes.
So if you just want to end up into an airline, instructor rating would be a waste of time and money.
Correct.
Okay, because the main perspective behind having an instructor rating is to gain hours.
Hours. Correct.
But in India, the hours which you will earn as an instructor,
Correct.
you will not use them to enter into an airline. Because they're completely pointless.
Right.
Okay. So instead of doing an instructor rating, if you are planning to just become an airline pilot, then I would recommend go for a type rating instead.
Right,
Because
correct.
that is something you have to do eventually.
Right.
So you might as well just invest in that.
Correct.
Because in foreign countries, to enter into an airline, you need about 1,500
500
hours.
hours,
That's
correct,
the reason
yes.
those people do instructor ratings there,
Ratings.
because they have to. But in India, because the whole requirements are so low, you don't really need an instructor
Need
rating.
it. All right. Thank you so much, Captain Vedant, for coming here.
No worries, man.
So this was the experience shared by Captain Vedant of flight training in New Zealand. For further details, feel free to contact us. Thank you.